Millionaire sees his maid mocked on a cruel blind date bet, then changes her life. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Tonight's story begins on a Friday night in a downtown restaurant glowing with soft golden light. The kind of place where people line up weeks in advance for a chance to sit under crystal chandeliers and take photos of their plates before they ever take a bite. The clinking of silverware and low jazz music fill the air, while waiters in crisp white shirts weave between tables carrying plates that look like artwork. At a small table near the back, under a warm pendant lamp, a young woman sits alone, both hands wrapped around a water glass as if it's the only solid thing she can hold on to. Her name is Mia Tran. She's wearing a simple navy dress that doesn't quite fit at the shoulders, like it used to belong to someone a little bigger than her. The hem brushes her knees when she shifts in her chair, and every time she moves, she checks the side seams, making sure nothing is torn or out of place. On her feet is a pair of slightly worn black heels, half a size too big, the kind you find on a discount rack and convince yourself will be fine with tissue stuffed in the toes. Her dark hair is tied back in a low ponytail, a few strands falling out to frame her face. She keeps smoothing them behind her ear, even though they fall back down every time. In front of her, beside the menu she's too nervous to open, there's a small, well-used sketchbook. The edges are bent, the cover faded, but her fingers rest on it like it's something precious. Inside are drawings she's made over the years, cozy little kitchens, small neighborhood diners with big windows and handwritten menus, tables where people of every kind of background sit shoulder to shoulder and nobody looks down on anyone else. While the rest of the restaurant is dressed in designer labels and expensive cologne, Mia carries the faint scent of dish soap and laundry detergent, the smell of a person who spends her days cleaning up after other people's lives. She isn't a guest here usually. She's staff, a maid, the live-in help at a quiet mansion across the river, where her world revolves around grocery lists, laundry cycles, and waking up before sunrise to brew coffee for a man she's barely spoken to directly. A man whose face she's more familiar with from magazine covers than from actual conversations in his own house. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Mia is not in a uniform. And tonight, for the first time in forever, she's on a date. At least, that's what she believes. While she glances nervously at the entrance, checking the time on her cracked phone screen, another part of the restaurant is busy with a completely different energy. At a long table near the bar, a group of 20-somethings laugh too loudly, their wrists clinking with jewelry, their phones lit up with group chats and notifications. One of them, a tall guy with perfectly styled hair and a smug, practiced smile, leans back in his chair, twirling his car keys around his finger. His name is Chad, and if confidence had a human form, it might look a lot like an expensive watch, designer shirt, and the permanent attitude that the world exists to entertain him. Across from him sits Brittany, blonde hair, flawless makeup, eyes sparkling with the thrill of gossip. She holds up her phone, showing a string of messages in their group chat. "I still can't believe you actually did it," she giggles, trying to keep her voice down but failing. "A blind date with the maid? You're unbelievable." Chad smirks, lifts his glass, and shrugs like this is the easiest thing in the world. "A bet's a bet," he says softly. "You guys wanted a show? I'm giving you a show. Besides, it's charity, right? One magical evening for Cinderella before midnight. She should be grateful." The group bursts into quiet laughter. One of the guys taps Chad's phone, where a hidden camera app is already open. "Make sure you get her reaction when she finds out," he whispers. "We need that oh my god face for the video." Chad slides his phone into his shirt pocket, camera peeking out through a barely noticeable opening. He glances toward the back of the restaurant, spotting Mia at the table, her hand still gripping the water glass, her eyes flicking from the door to the little sketchbook like she's trying to keep herself calm. "Relax," he says. "She doesn't even know who I really am. To her, I'm just some nice guy who wants to take her out. This is going to be hilarious. Brittany leans in, lowering her voice, but not her smirk. You remember the rules? She reminds him. Full night, no backing out. You make her think this is real. Then you walk away and tell her the truth at the end. We want the whole thing on video. Winner takes the cash pot. Chad's grin widens, and I always win. At another corner of the restaurant, near the staircase leading up to a mezzanine level, waiters move with a little more care, their backs slightly straighter, their tone more formal. Upstairs, behind a glass railing, a man in a tailored charcoal suit sits at a corner table with an untouched steak in front of him and a laptop open to a spreadsheet that he isn't really reading. His tie is loosened, his sleeves rolled up just enough to show he's been working long hours. But even exhausted, there's something sharp and commanding in his posture. His name is Adrian Hale, owner of the restaurant, owner of the building, owner of the quiet mansion across the river where Mia spends her mornings fixing his coffee and her nights folding his shirts. From up here he can see almost everything: the bar, the main floor, the entrance, the glowing reserved signs on certain tables. He lifts his gaze for a moment just to rest his eyes from the blur of numbers on the screen. And that's when he spots her, Mia, in that navy dress he's never seen before. Her shoulders slightly hunched, like she's trying to make herself smaller. Her fingers tracing the edge of her sketchbook. He frowns, not in annoyance, but in confusion. She shouldn't be here as a guest. Not on a Friday night. Not sitting there looking like she's counting her heartbeats. He watches as she checks the time again, then smooths the front of her dress for the third time in less than a minute. There's a small, almost invisible smile on her face. The kind people wear when they're trying to be hopeful, without getting too attached to the feeling. Adrian doesn't know yet what she's waiting for. He doesn't know about the bet. He doesn't know about the hidden camera or the cruel laughter circling in group chats. All he knows is that one of his staff, a woman who has never once complained about long hours or heavy work, is sitting alone in his restaurant, looking both out of place and like she's trying desperately to belong. Downstairs, Chad finally stands up, straightening his shirt like he's preparing for a performance. His friends nudge each other, phones ready, cameras half hidden behind water glasses and wine bottles. Showtime, he murmurs, and starts walking toward Mia's table, each step echoing softly against the polished floor. At the back, Mia takes a breath and finally opens her sketchbook, revealing a page where she's drawn a tiny diner with big windows and a handwritten sign over the door, Mia's Place. She looks at it for half a second, then snaps it shut quickly as she hears footsteps approaching and a voice say her name for the first time that night. Mia? He asks, smooth and practiced. She looks up, her eyes bright with nervous hope, having no idea that for him this is all a gay man that's somewhere above, a man who owns this room, this roof, in a much bigger world than she can imagine, is about to be pulled into a night that will change both of their lives forever. For a second, Mia forgets how to breathe. She stands up too fast, her knee bumps the table, and the water in her glass ripples dangerously close to the rim. She catches it with both hands just in time and feels her cheeks burn. Yes, she says, hoping her voice sounds normal. I am Mia. Chad gives her a smile that looks warm on the surface. Polished like a movie star greeting a fan, but behind it, there is a glint of something that Mia is too nervous to notice. I am Chad, he says. It is really nice to finally meet you in person. The word lands softly in her chest, like this entire evening has been waiting just for her. He reaches out and gently pulls her chair back for her. Mia sits, grateful and flustered that someone is treating her like a lady, and not like the person who cleans up after everyone else. Chad takes his seat across from her and lays his phone on the table. Screen facing down, camera already running without her knowing. At his friend's table, Brittany hides a grin behind her wine glass as she angles her phone, pretending to film the restaurant decor while secretly capturing every second. Mia folds her hands in her lap so he will not see them shake. Thank you for coming, she says quietly. I was a little nervous. Chad laughs, a sound that is smooth and practiced. Nervous? Why? You look great. Her eyes widen a little. She looks down at her dress, as if seeing it for the first time. This old thing? It was given to me, she admits, then regrets it immediately. She wishes she had said it was a gift from a friend or something that sounded less like charity. "Well, it suits you," he replies icily. "You stand out in all the right ways." The compliment makes her heart trip over itself. No one talks to her like this at the mansion. There, she is the invisible one, moving in the background, making sure everything is perfect for someone else's day. Here, for once, she is the person sitting at the table instead of the one wiping it down. A waiter appears with menus. Chad flips his open without really looking, eyes flicking quickly down the expensive list like he has done this 100 times. Mia lifts hers more slowly, her gaze catching on the prices first instead of the dishes. Her stomach tightens. The number beside the steak is almost equal to her entire grocery budget for a week. "Order whatever you like," Chad says, waving a hand casually. "Do not worry about the price. Tonight is about you." She looks up at him, surprised. "Are you sure?" He smiles at her, like he enjoys her confusion. Positive. "Consider it a special night." She nods and forces herself to look at the dishes instead of the numbers. Her eyes find something simple, grilled chicken with vegetables, and she decides that is safe. When the waiter returns, Chad orders the most expensive steak on the menu and a bottle of wine that makes the waiter raise his eyebrows respectfully. Mia hesitates. "I will have the chicken, please," she says softly. Chad glances at her, then at the waiter. "Make that 2 steaks," he corrects smoothly. "Trust me, Mia, you will like it." The waiter nods and leaves. Mia bites the inside of her cheek. She had chosen the cheaper dish on purpose, but she cannot bring herself to object. No one has ever insisted on something better for her before. For a while, they make small talk. Chad asks easy questions first. "Where did you grow up? How long have you been in the city? Do you like it here?" Mia tells him about coming to the city a few years ago, about sharing a tiny room with another girl and working whatever jobs she could find until she was hired as a live-in housekeeper. She leaves out the part about crying quietly some nights from sheer exhaustion. "So, you live in the house where you work?" he asks, pretending to be fascinated. "That must be intense." She shrugs lightly, trying not to sound ashamed. "It is a job," she says. "It is not forever. I am saving for something." "For later, what are you saving for?" he presses. Mia hesitates, then glances down at the little sketchbook beside her plate. She had promised herself she would try to be honest tonight. This was supposed to be a step toward a life where she does not always hide her dreams. "I want to open my own place someday," she says quietly. "Just a small restaurant. Nothing fancy. A place where people can come in no matter what they look like or how much money they have. Good food, a warm room, and no one gets judged." Chad leans back and lets out a low whistle, acting impressed. "Wow, that is big." "It is not big," she corrects softly, almost embarrassed by her own ambition. "Just something small. I draw it sometimes." He taps the sketchbook. "In there." For a second, she panics. Then she nods and flips it open, carefully turning pages, showing him quick lines of pencil that she drew late at night when the house was finally quiet. Countertops, booths, hanging plants, a chalkboard menu written in large, friendly letters. "You are really good," Chad says. At this time, the admiration in his voice almost sounds real. Almost, "You could make this happen, you know?" Her heart brightens. "You really think so?" "Sure," he says. "Especially if you know the right people." He says it in a lazy way, but the group at the other table hears it and exchange delighted glances. Brittany types a message into the group chat. She totally believes him. "This is gold. It's upstairs." Adrian closes his laptop halfway, giving up the pretense that he is working. His eyes keep returning to that table in the back, to Mia's nervous smile and the way she clutches that sketchbook like a life jacket. Something in his chest tightens when he sees her lean forward with sudden enthusiasm, showing that guy her drawings. Adrian cannot hear their words from here, but he knows what hope looks like on a person's face. He has seen it before. He has seen it crushed before, too. He signals to a passing waiter. "Who is the guy with the dark blue shirt at table 16? He asks casually. The waiter glances down, does a quick sweep of the room, and answers, "That is Chad, sir. Guest of your sister." Adrian's jaw shifts almost imperceptibly. His sister has a talent for surrounding herself with people who treat life like an ongoing joke. He looks back down at Mia. The way she looks at Chad right now, like he is opening a door she has only dared to knock on in her imagination, makes something uneasy flicker in Adrian's gut. He does not know yet that there is a phone on that table, face down but recording. He does not know that there is a bet. But as he watches Mia laugh nervously at something Chad says, Adrian can feel one thing very clearly. Whatever is happening down there has the power to either lift her up or break her. And he refuses to let anyone in his house, in his restaurant, use one of his people as a punchline. Down on the main floor, the food arrives on a silver tray that reflects the warm restaurant lights. 2 plates of perfectly cooked steak are set down in front of them. Pink in the center, edges seared, a drizzle of sauce catching the glow. The smell makes Mia's stomach tighten with both hunger and guilt. She has spent years scraping leftover food from plates like this in kitchens, never once sitting in front of one that belonged entirely to her. Wow, she whispers, because it is the only word that makes it past the knot in her throat. You are really sure about this? Chad cuts into his steak like he has done this his entire life, not bothering to answer the question directly. You work hard, he says casually. You said you were saving and trying to build a different future. People like that deserve a good night once in a while. The sentence sounds kind, and for a moment Mia lets it sink into the cracks of her tired heart. She picks up her fork and knife carefully, trying not to look like someone who has never dined this way. So, this job of yours, Chad says between bites, as if the thought has just occurred to him. You said you are a live-in housekeeper. What is that like exactly? Mia pauses, the steak halfway to her mouth. It is always this moment that makes her shrink a little. The part where she has to spell out exactly where she stands in the invisible ladder of the world. It is long hours, she explains slowly. Cleaning, laundry, cooking sometimes, organizing things. The house is very big. Someone has to make sure it runs. And your boss? Chad asks, tilting his head with interest that feels a little too sharp. What is he like? She thinks of Adrian the way she sees him most mornings, suit jacket over his arm, phone pressed to his ear, eyes fixed on some problem far away from the breakfast table. He is not cruel. He is not warm either. He is distant, like a star. He is busy, she says honestly. He travels a lot. We do not really talk much. I mostly see the back of him when he is leaving. Chad chuckles. So he has no idea he has someone as talented as you sketching restaurants in his house. She smiles, suddenly shy. I do not think so. And he does not know you are here tonight, right? The question feels strange. Mia shakes her head. No, this is my night off. I did not think it was important. At the other table, Brittany types quickly on her phone, her fingers moving with the excitement of someone who knows they are getting exactly what they came for. In the group chat, messages pop up one after another. Ask what she does exactly. Make her say she is the maid on camera. Get her to talk about the boss. This is going to blow up. Chad glances down at his phone for a split second, reading the flood of encouragement. Then looks back at Mia with a softened expression, as if the only thing he cares about is her answer. So you are like the maid of the house? He says lightly, as if it is a harmless clarification. The word lands between them with more weight than his tone suggests. Maid. It is accurate. But somehow feels like it strips everything else away and leaves her standing there with nothing but a label. Mia swallows. She has heard the word whispered behind closed doors, tossed around by guests who assume she cannot hear them, but saying it out loud herself, at this table, in this dress, feels like stepping backward into a shadow she has been trying to leave. Still, she forces herself to nod. Yes, she says quietly. I am the maid. Chad smiles, satisfied, and taps the side of his phone with one finger under the table, making sure the recording is still running. Upstairs, Adrian cannot hear the conversation, but he sees the shift. He sees Mia's shoulders tense and her eyes drop to her plate. He sees Chad lean back with the easy confidence of a man who has just gotten what he wanted. Adrian's memory pulls him somewhere else for a moment, back to a different dining room. Many years ago, he is a boy again, sitting at a table where he does not quite reach the floor, wearing a shirt that is a little too stiff and a tie that chokes when he swallows. His mother is in the room, not as a guest, but as staff. She moves between tables with a tray, smiling politely, doing her best to blend into the wallpaper of other people's lives. A man at one of the tables makes a joke about her accent. A woman laughs and waves a dismissive hand. "I swear, they are all the same," she says, not even bothering to lower her voice. "As long as they clean, who cares where they are from?" The table laughs. His mother's smile does not slip, but Adrian sees the way her fingers tighten around the tray until her knuckles go white. He remembers sitting there, feeling something inside him twist and harden, wishing he was older, bigger, powerful enough to knock the words out of their mouths. That night, he promised himself that if he ever had power, he would use it differently. The memory fades as the present pulls him back. He looks down at the floor again, at Mia. At the way she sits very still for a moment before she forces herself to smile and change the subject. "So, what do you do?" she asks Chad politely. "You must be very busy too, to be able to afford places like this." Chad gives a half shrug. "My family does well," he says. "I do a little investing. A little of this, a little of that. I guess you could say I was born lucky." Says it like it is a joke, but there is no shame in his tone, only pride. "It must be nice," Mia replies, and there is no bitterness in her voice, just quiet admiration. "To not worry about every dollar. You get used to it," he says. "When you grow up with it, you start needing new types of entertainment." At the other table, his friends smirk and raise their glasses. The word entertainment hangs in the air like a warning Adrian can almost taste from where he sits. He closes his laptop fully now and pushes his chair back an inch. The meal that was supposed to be a quick meeting between him and his spreadsheets has turned into something else. He does not have all the details yet, but his instincts, trained over years of reading people in boardrooms and negotiation tables, are speaking clearly. Something is off. Downstairs, as Mia takes another small bite and tries to relax, a message lights up on Chad's phone. Time for phase 2. "Bring us in. We need the group shot." He smirks to himself and sets his fork down. "Hey," he says, his tone suddenly bright. "Some of my friends are here tonight too. Do you mind if they come over and say hello? They have been dying to meet you." Mia's heart jumps. His friends? The idea that people like him want to meet someone like her feels unreal. She glances down at her secondhand dress, at her slightly too big heels, then back up at his expectant face. "If you want," she says softly. "I do not mind." Upstairs, Adrian straightens in his seat as he watches Chad raise a hand and wave a group over. That same uneasy feeling crawling tighter in his chest, like a storm cloud forming just beyond the glass. The moment Chad waves his hand, the group rises from their table with the slow, serpentine confidence of people who believe every room is already theirs. Brittany leads the way, her heels tapping against the polished floor like a countdown to something Mia cannot see coming. She lifts her chin, hair perfectly arranged, smile stretched just enough to be polite, but not enough to be warm. Behind her, 2 guys and another girl trail along, all of them holding their phones in ways that look casual on the surface but are angled precisely toward Mia and Chad's table. Mia straightens in her seat instinctively, smoothing her dress and tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her pulse flutters with the unfamiliar thrill of being noticed. She has served people like this before, wiped down their tables and collected their abandoned napkins, but she has never sat among them. She has never been the person they approach. "Hey, Chad," Brittany sings as she arrives, gaze sweeping over Mia in a way that feels like a scan more than a greeting. "Is this her?" Chad grins, leaning back as if presenting Mia like some kind of prize. "Yes, everyone, this is Mia." "Hi," Mia says softly, giving a small wave. She holds her smile, even though it trembles at the edges. The group exchanges glances loaded with meaning she does not understand. One of the guys, tall and bored-looking, lifts his phone to eye level. "Mind if we get a picture?" he asks, already angling the camera toward Mia before she can answer. "A picture?" she echoes, startled. "Why?" Brittany laughs lightly. "Just for fun? Tonight is kind of iconic." Mia blushes, confused but flattered, unaware that the camera is capturing every flicker of insecurity on her face. Brittany leans in closer, locking eyes with her, voice dipped in syrup, but razor sharp underneath. So, Mia, what do you do? Mia hesitates. They must have heard already, she thinks. Chad would not have brought them here if they were the type to judge. I work as a live-in housekeeper, she answers honestly. At a private residence across the river. A housekeeper, Brittany repeats, nodding slowly, like she is confirming a rumor. Her lips curled, not quite into a smile. So like, the maid. The word hits Mia harder this time because of the way it is said. Not curious. Not neutral. Just sharp enough to slice. Still, she gathers herself. Yes, she says softly. I guess that is another word for it. Chad snickers into his wine glass, pretending to hide it. She said it, one of his friends whispers, barely containing a laugh. I cannot believe she actually said it. Upstairs, Adrian shifts forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing as the group crowds around Mia's table. He cannot hear the exact words, but he knows the tone. He recognizes the body language, the leaning in, the smirks, the phones angled for content. It is the same scene he watched play out around his mother all those years ago. People with money using people without it as entertainment. Downstairs, Mia picks up her fork again, trying to steady herself. But Brittany is not done. So how did you two meet? She asks, her voice bright with false interest. Mia opens her mouth to answer, but Chad beats her to it. A blind date, he announces proudly. The group bursts into quiet laughter as if they are all in on a joke she is not aware of. Mia looks from face to face, her confusion growing. Is something wrong? She asks, trying to keep her voice steady. No, Brittany says quickly, touching Mia's arm as if to calm her. It is just. Sweet, really? You do not see this kind of thing every day. What kind of thing? Mia asks. You know, Brittany says, tilting her head in mock innocence. Someone like Chad taking someone like you out. It is cute. Cute. The word pierces. Not charming. Not admirable. Just cute, like a child trying on adult shoes. Mia's cheeks burn, and for the first time she feels the edges of something wrong taking shape around her. Chad lifts his phone slightly higher under the table, zooming in on her expression. Relax, he says with a grin. This is all just for fun. Fun? Mia echoes barely above a whisper. Before she can ask what he means, Brittany grabs her wine glass and raises it like a toast. 2 charity nights, she says brightly. To giving a little magic where it is needed? Adada. The friends laugh. The sound is soft but cruel, the kind of laughter that does not welcome you in but cages you out. Something inside Mia twists painfully. Charity. Magic where it is needed. Like she is a project. A novelty. A joke. She blinks hard, fighting the sting in her eyes. Her voice shakes when she asks, "What is going on?" Chad opens his mouth, no longer bothering to hide the smirk creeping across his face. Come on, Mia. You did not really think, but he never finishes the sentence, because a shadow falls across the table. Heavy, solid, cold as winter steel. A hand reaches down and picks up Mia's fallen sketchbook from the floor where she had unknowingly dropped it. A familiar voice speaks, low and controlled, every word carved with precision. Is there a problem here? Mia freezes. Chad stiffens. The group turns, and standing at the edge of the table, eyes dark with a warning, none of them can mistake. Is Adrian Hale? For a moment, no one at the table moves. The noise of the restaurant fades into a distant blur as every eye turns toward Adrian. He stands straight, one hand holding Mia's sketchbook, the other resting at his side. The calm in his face completely at odds with the storm gathering in his eyes. His presence shifts the air around them, tightening it. He is not raising his voice, but somehow it feels louder than anyone else's in the room. Mia's heart slams against her ribs. Mr. Hale, she breathes before she can stop herself. Hearing his name in her voice does something strange to him, but he does not let it show. He looks at her first, not at Chad, not at Brittany, not at the phones that are very clearly still recording. His gaze softens almost imperceptibly as he takes in her flushed cheeks. The way her shoulders are slightly hunched, the way her eyes refuse to fully meet his. "You dropped this," he says quietly, holding out the sketchbook. His tone when he speaks to her is different, lower, steady, as if he is trying to anchor her in place. Mia swallows and takes it with trembling hands. "Thank you," she manages. "I did not realize." Her voice trails off, and her fingers tighten around the worn cover like it is the only thing keeping her grounded. Then Adrian turns his attention to Chad and his friends. The temperature at the table seems to drop a few degrees. "I will ask again," he says, the warmth disappearing from his voice. "Is there a problem here?" Chad forces a laugh that comes out thinner than he meant. "Not at all," he replies quickly. "We are just having a good time. No harm done." Brittany adds, "Yes, it is just a fun night. Nothing serious." She tries to sound light, but her eyes are sharp and watchful, gauging whether he is someone she needs to charm or someone she can dismiss. Adrian studies the group for a long, heavy second. He notices the phones, the angle of their screens, the guilty flicker in their eyes every time they glance at Mia. He does not know the details of their game yet. But he knows this. Whatever they call fun has left one of his staff visibly shaken. That is all he needs to know for now. He looks back at Mia, deliberately ignoring Chad's explanation. "I am sorry I am late," he says, and the table goes very still. "Traffic was worse than I expected." Mia blinks. "Late," she repeats, confused. Adrian pulls out the empty chair beside her and sits down smoothly, as if this was planned from the beginning. "For our dinner," he says calmly, meeting her eyes with a look that quietly asks her to trust him, just this once. "You did say 8 o'clock, did you not?" The world tilts for Mia. She opens her mouth, closes it, glances at Chad, then at Adrian, trying to make sense of what is happening. Chad stares at Adrian like he has just spoken in another language. "I am sorry," Chad says slowly. "You two know each other?" Adrian does not flinch. "Mia works for me," he answers, voice even. Then he adds with a weight that makes the words sound very deliberate, "And tonight, she is my date." The phones at the table are suddenly not so casual. One of Chad's friends lowers his slowly, sensing the shift in power. Brittany forces a confused smile. "I thought she was here with Chad," she says, looking between the two men. "He told us this was a blind date." Adrian's eyes slide back to Chad. "Did he?" he says softly. "Interesting. Because I was under the impression that this table was booked for 2 under my reservation." He lifts a hand and signals to a nearby waiter with a simple, practiced gesture. The waiter hurries over. "Yes, sir?" Adrian does not take his eyes off Chad as he speaks. "There seems to have been a mistake," he says. "Please move my date and I to the window table, the one you keep for very important guests, and send over the chef's tasting menu. On my account?" The waiter nods immediately. "Of course, Mr. Hale," he replies, already shifting into motion. Mia stares at Adrian, her mind racing to catch up. Mr. Hale, the owner. The man whose coffee she prepares every morning, whose shoes she lines up by the door, whose footsteps she has learned to recognize from the other side of a hallway. He is here at her table, calling her his date. Adrian Hale. One of Chad's friends mutters under his breath, recognition finally dawning. As in the owner, Adrian Hale? Color drains from Chad's face. "You own this place?" he asks, his bravado slipping. Adrian gives a small, cold smile. "This place," he says calmly, "and a few others." He stands, then turns to Mia and extends his hand, palm open, inviting. "Shall we?" For a heartbeat, Mia does not move. The part of her that is used to apologizing, to making herself smaller, to accepting whatever is handed to her, wants to say she can just go home, that she does not belong here. But the way Adrian is looking at her, steady and unwavering, tells her something else. It tells her that leaving now would be letting them win. So she places her hand in his. His grip is firm, grounding. When she rises, her slightly too big heels wobble for a split second, and she leans into him to steady herself. He does not let go. As they step away from the table, Adrian glances back over his shoulder at the group. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through the tension like a knife. Next time you are looking for entertainment, he says, I suggest you do not use my staff as the punchline. Chad swallows hard. Brittany's smile finally falls. No one laughs. The waiter leads Adrian and Mia toward the best table in the restaurant, next to the large window that frames the city lights like a painting. People look up as they pass, some recognizing Adrian, others simply sensing that something important has shifted. Mia walks beside him, her heart still pounding, her mind still spinning, her fingers still curled around her sketchbook. She does not know why he stepped in like that. She does not know what this night is going to turn into now. All she knows is that a few minutes ago she felt small enough to disappear. And now, as she sits down at a table reserved for the most important guests in the room, with the owner himself beside her, she feels for the first time in a very long time, like maybe she is not invisible after all. For a while, Mia can barely taste anything on her plate. The chef's tasting menu arrives in careful stages, each dish arranged like art. But her attention keeps drifting back to the table they left behind, to the tight laughter that has completely died, to the phones that have all been flipped face down. Adrian notices the way her eyes flicker, the way her fingers tighten around her fork every time she accidentally looks in that direction. He waits until the waiter leaves them with a quiet space and 2 glasses of sparkling water before he speaks. You are safe here, he says simply. His voice is low, meant only for her. No one at that table has any power over you now. Mia swallows, studying the reflection of the city lights in the window so she does not have to see her own expression. I did not realize they were making fun of me at first, she admits softly. I thought it was just me being nervous. I always think it is just me. She lets out a breath that is almost a laugh, but it cracks halfway. Maybe I should have known better? Adrian shakes his head. You should not have to assume the worst of people just to protect yourself, he says. Their behavior says everything about them and nothing about your worth. Right. Her throat tightens at that word. Worth. Still, she says, forcing a small smile. Thank you for what you did. You did not have to get involved. He looks at her like she has said something completely backwards. I disagree, he replies. This is my restaurant. You are part of my household. They disrespected both. Mia lowers her gaze to her lap, where her sketchbook rests. The cover is worn, corners softened by years of use. They were just having fun, she says quietly, though even as she says it, the words taste wrong. People like that have a very strange definition of fun, Adrian answers. And it usually depends on someone else feeling small. There is a silence that stretches between them, not awkward, but heavy with things neither of them have said out loud before. Finally, he nods toward the sketchbook. May I see it properly? He asks. She hesitates, then pushes it toward him with both hands, as if handing over a secret. He opens it carefully, turning pages one by one. He sees small rooms sketched in pencil, counters lined with plates, windows filled with sunlight, people sitting at tables who look ordinary and content. There are no expensive chandeliers, no dress codes, no velvet ropes, just warmth, just welcome. These are good, he says, and there is no politeness in his tone, only honest assessment. You have an eye for space, flow, where people would move, where they would want to sit. Mia blinks, surprised. You really think so? I know so, he replies. I have opened enough places to recognize when someone understands how a room should feel. She laughs softly, overwhelmed. They are just sketches, she says. Just ideas. Every one of my restaurants started as exactly that, Adrian reminds her. A sketch. A scribble on a napkin. A note in a phone. The only difference between a sketch and reality is what you decide to do with it. She looks at him, hope and fear wrestling in her eyes. Reality's expensive, she says. For people like me, it is very easy to dream and very hard to pay for it. Adrian leans back slightly, thinking. When he speaks again, his tone has shifted from comfort to something more like a proposal. How long have you been working for me, Mia? Almost 2 years, she answers. You show up early, he says. You stay late. You do not complain. The house has never run so smoothly. My staff reports are very clear about that. She flushes, not used to being noticed for anything beyond whether a room is clean. It is my job, she says. I just try to do it well. You do it very well, he corrects. But I suspect this is not the job you want to be doing for the rest of your life. His hand rests on the sketchbook. This is... Her chest aches at how accurately he has put it into words. I do not know how to get from here to there, she admits. I barely finished school. I have never gone to culinary classes. I just cook and draw when I can. Adrian nods slowly. All right, he says. Then let us change that. She blinks. Change what? Your position, he says. Your path. If you want it. He folds his hands on the table, looking directly at her. I can enroll you in a professional culinary program that partners with my restaurants. It is intense, but it is designed for people who work while they learn. When you finish, you will not be a maid who happens to cook. You will be a trained chef, or at least a skilled line cook with experience in one of my kitchens. Mia stares at him, stunned. You would do that? I would be investing in someone who already invests in my world every day, he says calmly. It is not charity. It is recognizing potential. In the meantime, we can discuss shifting your role at the house, reducing some hours, and moving you into a junior position in one of my restaurant kitchens instead of full-time housekeeping. It will not be easy, but it will be movement toward this. He taps the sketchbook. Her eyes fill before she can stop them. She looks down quickly, embarrassed by her own reaction. Why? She whispers. Why me? Adrian thinks of the way she flinched at the word maid, of the laughter at the other table, of his mother's white knuckles around a tray. Because you have done everything you can with the little you were given, he answers quietly. And because I refuse to let the only story of your life be that you were the maid who got humiliated on a blind date in my restaurant. If my name is attached to your story, then it will be attached to a better ending than that. He reaches into his jacket, takes out a slim black card, and slides it across the table toward her. His personal number is printed on it in small silver letters. Think about it, he says. If you decide you are serious, call this. We will make a plan. Mia looks at the card as if it burns. She has never held something that carries so much possibility in such a small space. Between the sketchbook, under her hands, and the card on the table, it feels like the future is suddenly closer than it has ever been. Close enough to touch, if she can just gather the courage to reach for it. That night, after Adrian walks her to a cab and makes sure she gets home safely, Mia lies awake in her small room at the back of the mansion, the sketchbook on her chest, and the black card on the nightstand. Glowing faintly in the light from the hallway, she replays every second of the evening in her mind. From the first nervous sip of water, to the cruel laughter, to the way Adrian took her hand and pulled her out of that circle like she mattered, like she was someone worth defending. Part of her wants to hold on to that feeling, to believe that this is the moment everything begins to change. Another part of her, the part that has been disappointed before, whispers that it is dangerous to trust something that feels this much like a dream. Over the next few days, life at the mansion shifts in small, almost imperceptible ways. Adrian's usual brief nods in the morning become actual greetings. He asks if she is sleeping enough, if the schedule is too heavy. He leaves pamphlets from the culinary program on the kitchen counter where he knows she will see them, highlighted in places, with notes written in the margins in his precise handwriting. This could be a fit, one note says. Talk to me if you want help with the application. She carries his card in the pocket of her uniform, fingertips brushing against the edges throughout the day, as if checking that it is still real. Every time she considers calling, a wave of doubt crashes over her. What if he is just being kind because he feels guilty about what happened at the restaurant? What if helping her is just good public relations? What if this is all temporary, and she will end up back exactly where she started? Is only more embarrassed for having believed otherwise. In another part of the city, a very different version of that night is spreading. The first clip appears on social media 2 days later. It is short and shaky, recorded from Brittany's phone. The caption reads, "Rich boss simps for his maid after blind date goes wrong," followed by laughing emojis and a fire icon designed to grab attention. The video shows Mia at the table with Chad, laughing nervously, admitting in a small voice, "Yes, I am the maid," while text pops up on the screen that says, "When your blind date turns out to clean your boss's house." The clip cuts to Adrian arriving at the table, picking up the sketchbook and saying, "Tonight she is my date," framed as if it is dramatic and ridiculous rather than protective and necessary. The comments flood in. "This has to be staged. She totally planned this. No way. Gold digger, level 100. He is definitely having fun with the help. The more people share it, the less it feels like a story, and the more it feels like a rumor that no one can control." By the time the clip reaches someone on the mansion staff, the whispers have already started. Mia notices the way the newer housekeeper stopped talking when she walks into the laundry room. She notices the way the driver avoids her eyes when he hands her the keys to bring in groceries. Finally, one afternoon, she overhears two voices in the hallway outside the pantry. One of them is familiar. Adrian's sister. "I told you that group was just for fun," she hisses at Chad over the phone. "You promised it would stay private. Now there is a video of my brother playing knight in shining armor for his maid all over the internet. Do you have any idea how this looks for him?" There is a muffled response, and then her voice again, lower but still sharp. "Yes, I know he stepped in. He always does this. He thinks he has to fix everything. But this is exactly the kind of thing people will twist. They will say he is inappropriate with staff, that he blurs lines. He is already under so much pressure. The last thing he needs is to be dragged into some drama involving a girl who cleans his house." Mia stands frozen in the pantry, a can of tomatoes in her hand, heart pounding in her ears. A girl who cleans his house? Drama. The words slam into her one after another. She backs away on instinct, careful not to knock anything over, careful not to make a sound. Suddenly, the black card in her pocket feels heavier, like a stone dragging her down instead of lifting her up. In her room that night, she searches her own name online out of morbid curiosity and finds the clip. The comments, the strangers who think they know everything about her based on 10 seconds of video. She scrolls until her eyes sting, until the word gold digger feels tattooed across her skin. By the time she stops, the narrative in her mind has twisted. Maybe Adrian stepping in was never about her dream, never about the sketchbook, never about her worth. Maybe he just did not want a scandal attached to his restaurant. Maybe he offered the program and the position to make sure she would stay quiet, grateful, easy to manage. The thought hurts more than the laughter ever did. In a burst of panic and self-protection, Mia does the only thing that feels like she can still control. She does not call the number on the card. She ignores the pamphlets. The next morning, before the sun is fully up, she leaves a neatly folded resignation letter on the marble kitchen island, next to Adrian's empty coffee cup, and walks out of the mansion with a small suitcase, her sketchbook, and the fierce, aching belief that it is better to leave on her own terms than to stay, and wonder if she is just another problem he is trying to fix. The resignation letter hits Adrian harder than any headline ever has. He finds it in the quiet of the early morning, the kitchen still smelling faintly of coffee and toasted bread. The note is short and painfully polite, written in Mia's careful handwriting. She thanks him for the opportunity, apologizes for leaving abruptly, and wishes him and the household well. There is no mention of the card, no mention of the program, no mention of the night in the restaurant. It feels like a door closing without even the sound of a goodbye. Within hours, his assistant rushes in with a tablet, eyes wide. "You need to see this," she says, opening the viral clip. Adrian watches the 10-second video that the world has already judged 100,000 times. He sees Mia's face freeze when she says, "Yes, I am the maid." He sees himself stepping in, hears his own voice say, "Tonight she is my date," stripped of context and framed as if it is some scandalous confession. He scrolls through the comments with his jaw clenched. Reading strangers label her a gold digger, accuse him of taking advantage of staff. Twist his attempt to protect her into something dirty. The more he reads, the clearer one realization becomes. Doing nothing is not an option. He cannot control the entire internet, but he can control his own house. A week later, a mandatory staff meeting is announced for all employees of Hale Group's flagship locations, along with key managers from the other restaurants joining by video. The memo says it is about workplace values and conduct. But the timing and tension in the air tell everyone that it is about something else too. On the same day, Mia receives a call from the human resources office of the restaurant where the blind date took place. The woman on the phone sounds formal but kind. "We need to finalize your exit paperwork, and there are things you need to hear from us directly," she explains. "There is a staff meeting in the main event space tonight. It would be helpful if you could attend. You are not in trouble, but your name has been involved in something public, and Mr. Hale wants to address it." The mention of his name makes Mia's stomach knot up. Part of her wants to say no, to stay in the tiny room she now rents across town, to disappear and let the story die on its own. But another part of her, the part that still remembers how he looked at her that night, wonders what he could possibly say in front of everyone. In the end, she agrees. That evening, the main event hall above the flagship restaurant is full. Servers in black shirts, hosts in pressed suits, line cooks in clean jackets, managers with clipboards. Screens along the walls show the faces of staff tuning in from other locations. There is a low buzz of unsettled conversation. Everyone has seen the clip. Everyone has questions. At the back of the room, Mia slips in quietly. Wearing a plain blouse and jeans, her sketchbook tucked into her bag like a habit she cannot break. She stands near the exit, ready to leave if it becomes too much. On the far side of the room, Chad and Brittany stand in a smaller cluster near Adrian's sister. They are not employees, but they have been called to. Brittany's confidence is gone, replaced by a tight, anxious smile. Chad looks irritated more than ashamed, like this is an inconvenience, not a consequence. The room falls silent when Adrian steps up onto the small stage at the front. He is not in a flashy suit tonight, just a simple dark shirt and dress pants. Sleeves rolled up, as if he is here to work, not to perform. He looks out over the crowd, and for a moment his gaze catches on Mia's in the back. Her breath catches, but he does not break stride. "Thank you all for being here," he begins. His voice carries easily, steady, and controlled. "I know you have seen the video. I know you have heard the rumors. Tonight, I am going to tell you the truth. Not through gossip, not through edited clips, but through facts. In my house and in my restaurants, we do not build opinions on half stories." He picks up a small remote. The lights dim slightly and a video feed appears on the large screen behind him. "This," he says, "is our own security footage from that night." The room watches as the scene plays out from a different angle. They see Chad and his friends at their table, laughing over their phones. They hear the audio that the internet never heard. They hear the sentences that change everything. Let us see how she reacts when she realizes this is a bet. Make her say she is the maid on camera. 2 charity nights. Every cruel phrase spills into the room, echoing against the walls. Staff members shift uncomfortably, some gasping, some shaking their heads in disbelief. On the screen, they watch Mia show her sketchbook, hopeful and shy. They watch her say, "I am the maid," and they hear the laughter that follows. They watch Adrian step in, but now, instead of seeing a dramatic entrance, they see the context. A man intervening when one of his employees is being used as a prop. The video ends. The lights come back up. Adrian looks out at his staff, his jaw tight but his voice steady. "This is what actually happened," he says. "A group of wealthy guests, including someone connected to my own family, made a game out of humiliating a woman who works for me. They used my restaurant as their stage and my employee as their punchline. When I realized what was happening, I stepped in. Not as some romantic gesture, not as a scandal, but as the bare minimum of what leadership should look like." He turns his head toward Chad and Brittany. The entire room follows his gaze. "Chad," he says evenly, "you and your friends are no longer welcome in any Hale Group property. Effective immediately. This is not a request. This is a permanent ban." Chad's mouth opens in protest. "You cannot be serious," he snaps. "It was a joke. We did not actually hurt her. She left, did she not?" Adrian's eyes harden. "She left because this joke followed her into every corner of her life," he answers. Because strangers decided they knew who she was based on the lies you chose to leave out of the story. That is harm. And it happened under my roof. I will not tolerate it. He looks back at the staff, his voice softening but gaining weight. Listen carefully, he says. No one in my company is just the maid, just the dishwasher, just the host. You are the heart of these places. You carry the weight that keeps the doors open and the lights on. If anyone, guest or otherwise, thinks they can come into our house and treat you as less than human, they will lose the privilege of being here. I do not care how much money they spend. At the back of the room, Mia feels something loosen in her chest that has been clenched since the night of the bet. She did not expect to be defended like this, not in public, not with this kind of clarity. She thought maybe he would smooth it over, soften the edges. Instead, he has turned the full force of his position toward the truth. Adrian inhales once, then continues. One more thing, he says. You have heard my side. You have seen the security footage. There is one person whose voice has been missing from all of this, and it is the person whose life was most affected. He looks toward the back of the room again, his eyes finding her with ease. Mia, he says, his voice gentler now, but still carrying. If you are willing, I would like to invite you up here. Not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because I owe you the chance to be seen not as a rumor, but as who you really are. Every head turns toward her. The room parts slowly as people step aside, making a path she never expected to walk. Her heart hammers. Her first instinct is to run. But then she feels the familiar weight of her sketchbook in her bag, remembers the card on her nightstand, remembers the sound of his voice saying, "This is not charity. This is recognizing potential." With her legs shaking and her throat tight, Mia takes a breath and steps forward toward the front of the room, toward the man who is finally, fully putting his reputation on the line to restore hers. The walk to the front of the room feels longer than any hallway Mia has ever cleaned, but when she reaches the small stage, Adrian steps back just enough to give her space, while still standing close enough that she can feel his presence like a steady wall behind her. He offers her the microphone gently, as if he is handing her something fragile and powerful at the same time. Her hands shake, but she takes it. For a second, all she can hear is her own breathing in the speakers. 100 faces look up at her, some familiar, some new, some watching through the screens on the walls. She clears her throat. My name is Mia, she begins, her voice small at first, then growing as the sound system carries it. Some of you know me as the maid at the Hale House. Some of you have only seen that video. A ripple of recognition moves through the crowd. She continues. The truth is, I was proud of my job. I came here with nothing, and being alive and housekeeper gave me a place to stay, money to send home, a chance to build something. But that night, when I agreed to go on a blind date, I forgot that some people do not see people like me as human. They see us as a joke. Her throat tightens, but she pushes through it. I did not know it was a bet. I did not know that when I said I was the maid, people would record it and turn it into a story where I was a gold digger and he was a man playing around with the help. I did not ask for any of that. I just wanted one normal night. She looks down for a moment, then lifts her head again. I left because I thought maybe I had become a problem he needed to solve. I did not want to be that. I did not want to be drama in his life. But standing here now, seeing the truth on that screen, hearing what he has said to all of you, I realize something. She glances at Adrian, and there's a small, grateful smile at the corners of her mouth. I was not the problem. The way I was treated was the problem. Soft murmur passes through the room. Some people nod. Some blink away tears. Mia holds her sketchbook to her chest with her free arm, as if drawing strength from it. I do not know what people online will say after tonight, she admits. Maybe they will keep talking. Maybe they will not care. But I care about what the people in this room think. Because you know what it feels like to be on your feet all day, to smile when you are tired, to make everything perfect for other people, while they never learn your name. Her eyes move over the servers, the cooks, the hosts. I am one of you. I am not better. I am not worse. I am just trying to build a life with the tools I have. She takes a breath that steadies her from the inside out. and I am going to take the chance that was offered to me. I am going to enroll in that culinary program. I'm going to work in one of these kitchens. One day, I am going to hang a sign over my own door, and I will remember every person who stood here tonight and heard me as a person instead of a punchline. The room erupts in applause, not loud in a chaotic way, but strong and sustained, like a wave of agreement. Adrian does not try to take the microphone back immediately. He lets her stand there, fully seen. When the noise finally softens, he leans in just enough for only her to hear. "You did well," he says. "You did that." Months pass. The internet moves on to other scandals, other stories. Inside the Hale group, however, something has shifted for good. Policies are updated. Staff training now includes firm guidelines on respect and boundaries, not just for customers, but for employees among themselves. The story of the maid and the bet becomes a quiet legend, told not as gossip, but as a reminder of the moment the company drew a line in permanent ink. Almost a year later, on a quiet street a few blocks away from one of Adrian's restaurants, a new place opens its doors. It is small and bright, with big windows that let in the afternoon sun and plants hanging from the ceiling. The sign above the door is simple and hand-painted. It reads, "Mia's Table." Inside, the walls are decorated with framed copies of sketches from a worn notebook. One drawing shows a little diner with big windows and a handwritten menu. Another shows the exact layout of the room that now exists. A small plaque near the counter reads, "For anyone who ever felt like they did not belong at the table." On a shelf by the entrance, under a glass dome, sits a pair of black heels, slightly too big, with a small card that says, "For the girl who thought the shoes were not made for her." On another wall, in a simple frame, is Adrian's black card. The silver letters visible, but no longer needed. It is there as a reminder, not as a lifeline. On opening day, the place is full. Locals, staff from Hale, restaurants, neighbors, and a few curious strangers who saw a quiet post from the company count celebrating the launch of a new partner restaurant, co-owned by Hale Group and its former housekeeper. Behind the counter, Mia moves with the ease of someone who has earned every inch of this floor. She calls out orders, checks plates, smiles at customers. Her mother sits at a corner table near the window, watching her with proud eyes. Near the back, at a table that is not reserved, but always seems to be waiting for him, sits Adrian. He is dressed simply, sleeves rolled up, a coffee in front of him that someone else brewed. He watches as Mia laughs with a customer as she adjusts a frame that is hanging slightly crooked. As she wipes her hands on her apron and steps over to his table. "So," she says, pretending to be casual but failing to hide the warmth in her voice. "What does the owner think?" He looks around, taking in every detail. "I think the owner has done something very difficult," he says. "She took one of the worst nights of her life and turned it into a door for everyone else to walk through without feeling small." Her eyes shine. "I could not have done it without you," she says. He shakes his head. "You could have," he replies softly. "It just would have taken longer. All I did was move a few obstacles that should never have been there in the first place." There is a pause, comfortable and expectant. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a folded sheet of paper and places it on the table. "This is the proposal for your second location," he explains. "If you want it, it would make you an official partner in the next Mia's Table inside one of my hotels. Full co-ownership. No hidden clauses." She looks from the paper to his face. "And what do you want?" she asks quietly. "You," he says, and the word hangs between them, honest and unadorned. "Not as my employee, not as my responsibility, as my equal, as the woman who reminded me that leadership is not about protecting my image, it is about protecting people. As the person I want to sit across from at a table that belongs to both of us." Her heart pounds, but this time it is not from fear. It is from recognition. She looks around.